Did you know women represent only 33% of employees in the tech industry? And according to Accenture, half of women who go into the tech industry drop out by the age of 35. Knowing those stats, it's great when you hear of a company that is beating those odds. I wanted to know what is making the difference, so I've invited Laura Baldwin, the president of O'Reilly Media, to share what they are doing at O'Reilly with all of us. Laura Baldwin began working with O'Reilly Media in October of 2001 as Chief Financial Officer, and she added Chief Operating Officer to her responsibilities before becoming O'Reilly's first president in March of 2011. And prior to O'Reilly, she consulted for the publishing industry with BMR Associates, managing diverse, large projects. Her media career started at Chronicle Books, where she was CFO for 10 years, contributing to its successful distribution and gift business launch. Laura's diverse experience in banking, corporate governance, and media fuels her passion for the industry. She credits her leadership ethos to her all-girls high school, where she was taught that leadership is available to anyone who demonstrates initiative and drive, regardless of their gender. At O'Reilly, she helped to create a diversity scholarship program and continues to advocate for an inclusive and open workforce. And in this episode, Laura and I discuss O'Reilly stats. They have 45% of women on their executive team, and company-wide, they are 43% women. We talk about when O'Reilly realized there was a discrepancy in their company and that something needed to change. And we talk about what they're doing differently, which has allowed them to sustainably achieve these numbers. And we finish with O'Reilly's current focus to help their people continue to have flexibility and manageable workloads. If you are new to the Women Taking the Lead podcast, hello and welcome. I'm Jody Flynn. I'm the CEO and founder of Women Taking the Lead, a leadership development company that helps organizations achieve their gender parity goals at all levels of leadership and in all divisions of their organization. We help to realize these results through consulting, coaching, leadership development programs, and keynotes. My goal is for this podcast to be a valuable resource for you and others in your organization of all genders to grow in your leadership. If we are not already connected on LinkedIn, please send me an invitation to connect. You can find me directly at linkedin.com/in/Jody Flynn, or you can search on the platform for Jody Flynn. I am very active on LinkedIn, so I should be at or near the top of the search results. And be sure to add a note to the invitation letting me know you're a listener of the podcast. I would love to connect with you and get to know you better. Welcome to the Women Taking the Lead podcast, Laura.
Oh, I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm thrilled that you're here, and I'm excited about the conversation we're about to have. But before we go there, everyone's gotten a sense of how amazing you are in your professional life, Laura, and goodness, the different things that you have done and the titles that you've had. But tell us a little bit more about you when you're not at work.
Oh, well, when I'm not at work, I think, and I tell this to people all the time when people ask me, what's your greatest achievement? And they wait for me to say, oh, I'm the president of this huge organization. And it's not true. My greatest achievement are my husband of 37 years, my two children who are 33 and 31. And one is married, one is soon to be. And my mom, my sisters, very involved in this big Italian family that we have that I love so very much. That's my first priority in life. I'm an avid reader. I read hours every day, almost every single night, late into the night, which is probably why I have bags under my eyes all the time. But I also am a big proponent of spending time thinking about work outside of work, because I think, and people think it's funny to think about that as a hobby, but it's like, what am I doing differently? Could I do differently? And I tend to spend time outside of work thinking about how to do better at work. And it's actually been really positive time for me, and I've done it my whole career. So, that's me in a nutshell.
I love that you bring that up, Laura, because there's so much content out there telling us, you really got to have a delineation between work and home. And, I go back and forth on this, right? If somebody is heading towards burnout and work is the cause, well, then yes, you really need to scale back. But if work and thinking about work enlivens you and rejuvenates you. And I know for myself, there were times where work, yes, definitely was contributing to like being on the path to burnout. And I have experienced burnout, but then there have been other times where thinking about work felt more like trying to solve a puzzle. And
Exactly.
with the intention of, I'm trying to figure out a puzzle so that we can enjoy work more and we can feel good about what we're doing. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, laying in bed at night, how do I make this better? How could I do this differently? I always think about those things as opportunities, not failures. Right. So like something goes wrong in a meeting, I definitely have a little bit of an Italian temper. How do I cage that better next time? Like, it's almost like challenging yourself. And it doesn't just make you better at work, it makes you better in life.
Yeah.
Because all of those things can go. I've never been a believer in like the work-life balance. I don't think that, I think that's come to mean something that's not real, which is 50% work, 50% everything else. There are times when work needs to be 80%. When I have a board meeting coming up, it's like, sorry, hon, you're on your own for dinner. Like, I have to focus. But there are times when I have left work at 2 p.m. to go do something with my mom. So I think that whole weird thing about work-life balance being some 50-50 split that you have to manage to every single day, I think that's not a true representation of how life works.
Yeah. And if you think of the word balance doesn't mean you're in the same position at all times. It just means as things are pivoting, you're shifting your weight, you're moving things around. It's more of being on a balance board where it's just constantly moving and you're just pivoting and adjusting to what's going on.
Right. And I think burnout gets created when the companies you're working for don't understand that. And that's why at O'Reilly, since I've become president, I've brought in this total put your family first flexibility stance that allows people to do that balancing act that they need to do. Someone told me once in my career, they asked me what my daughter did. This is back when she was, 4 or 5 years old. And I said, she's taking dance classes. And they said, if you're sitting at your desk at 5 o'clock and she's on stage somewhere, you're in the wrong place. And I've kept that. And I've said that to so many people, not just at O'Reilly, but in my past career too, around you've got to be able to prioritize based on the need of the moment. And what we've tried to do at O'Reilly, and it's not just me, it's our whole team, have tried to make it so people could make those choices easily and not get in trouble for them. And I think that is one of the things I'm the most proud of about the culture of O'Reilly since becoming its president in 2011.
I love that. And what you just said resonated, like to make those choices easily, because one of the questions I ask my clients when we first start working together, and it's part of my leadership operating system inventory is, how do you do taking guilt-free time off? Because most of us take time off, right? We have to. And there, and even if we're good at like, yep, we take vacations, but can you do it without guilt and without worry? Can you actually mentally be away from work and not just physically? And that's what you just said, like just jumped out at me is like, we make these decisions easy for people. And if it's easy, it's guilt-free. Like, I know that this is something my company values.
Absolutely. And we work really hard to push that down through the entire culture so that everybody knows it. I talk about it in all hands meetings. We have an incredibly flexible culture that allows you to make those decisions freely. And we support each other in those. So, when you do it throughout the whole company, And I know that some people talk a lot about, well, women need flexibility. At O'Reilly, I've never focused it on women. I have focused it on our entire population, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have plenty of men who are parents that, want to be able to coach their kids' little league team. And we have plenty of people without children that want to be able to volunteer and do the things that they want to do. You've got to think about it as how to take care of your whole population, not just the women in your population, not just the assumption that women are the primary caregivers. We have plenty of men who are taking care of their parents, just like women are. So you've got to make sure that you build something that works for everyone, not just the women in your population.
100% agree. And McKinsey just released research last year that was showing that the things that actually help companies to keep their women employees, to retain them, are the same things that help to retain their male employees as well, because there's almost this mythology that women want something different from men. And that's not true. It's just overall, and I'll say this generically, it tends to be a deal breaker for women a little more quickly than it's a deal breaker for men. And there are many reasons for that. We're not gonna go there, but I'm excited because you segued perfectly into what I wanted to talk with you about. And just so the audience knows, O'Reilly has on their executive team, 45% are women, which is amazing. And when I first heard this stat, my first question was, has it always been this way? And the answer was no. And of course, then my next question is, how did they bring this about? And this is a sustainable number. I just want people to know this didn't just happen and now we're talking about it. This has sustainably been growing over time. Laura, if you could take us back to, as far back as you need to go to, when did you realize something needed to change?
Well, at O'Reilly, I've been very fortunate because Tim O'Reilly, who is our founder and owner, always had women at the executive levels. He always did. We weren't at 45% way back when I started in 2001, but there were women on the executive team at the time. There's probably 4 or 5 of us. So there was probably like 35%. But in my prior career, where it was hard to get a seat at the table, that is where I started focusing on what could I do when I hired people, even before I became a C-level leader, right? How could I make sure that I was bringing women into the fold? And it's always been a focus. For the last 20 years at O'Reilly, yes, the focus has been to try to bring women to the executive team, but I'll be honest, the focus has been bringing talent onto the executive team. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I think is really important is a lot of that talent at O'Reilly has been promoted from within. I am a huge advocate of promotion from within. So when you find that talent, those women leaders, putting them in a position where they can learn and grow, that over time is what built the executive team that we have now at O'Reilly. Many of the women on that team have been with O'Reilly and with me for a very long time and have grown their careers at O'Reilly because we gave them those opportunities. And that has led them to the C-level positions they're in now on our executive team. I think that too many companies say, oh, we have a female problem, let's hire for it. That was never our focus. We never did that. And we look for talent, we find talent, we nurture talent. And one of the big ways I nurture talent is literally giving them opportunities to shine. I think that over time is how you build those kind of programs. I don't think it happens because one day you say, I think we have a problem, let's hire some females to do something about it. Mm-hmm. And I think Laura, too many companies take that route. And I think that's the easier way out, to be honest.
It's the easier way out and it doesn't always work. And I'm loving what you're saying. And selfishly, this validates the episode I just put out because I did an episode on psychological safety. And one of the things, the recommendations to organizations is to promote from within, right? That creates psychological safety. It lets people know there's movement here, there's opportunity here. And if as an organization, the intention is to, whenever possible, to promote from within, you are going to put resources into helping people grow and learn and develop. Because companies who are like, oh, we'll just hire, the next director or VP from the outside. Well, what happens in those organizations is they're keeping their people too busy to be able to grow and learn and develop. So I love, right off the bat, I love what you're saying because that validates that this is a way to sustainably increase the number of, and like you said, not just women, but all sorts of diverse populations into leadership within an organization.
Yeah. And by the time they grow that way, and I'll be honest, there's only been 2 people hired in that really, it's both been at the CFO level, myself as the original CFO that was hired, which was the role when I started there, and our current CFO, but everybody else on our exec team has been promoted from within.
Mm-hmm. Love that. Yeah, and you were telling me before the call that it didn't even start, like some of the focus didn't even start with necessarily the executive team. Tell everyone about that.
Yeah, it actually started, O'Reilly used to put on these very large conferences, which we still do digitally via our learning platform, but we used to put on these large conferences, 5,000, 10,000 people. And I was at one of our conferences in the summer, and we were in Oregon. I will never forget it. And I remember I was standing next to the chair of the conference, who actually happened to be a woman. And we noticed that all of the speakers were white men. Mm. And that was when we really brought intentional diversity initiatives into O'Reilly. Now, O'Reilly's mission is to spread the knowledge of innovators. We go out and we find the best practitioners that are talking about the most important things in technology and how technology is advancing, and we help make that real for companies. When we saw that it was all men, we got very nervous because there are so many other voices out there. Our own company had a lot better female representation than we saw on our own stage. And we made a decision. We hired in a woman named Nicole Sanchez of Via Consulting. She came in to help us figure out, why weren't we being able to represent women on stage? Why weren't we finding underrepresented talent? And really trying to figure out what we needed to do differently to go out and find those speakers, those innovators who build all of our training and learning content, all of our live courses, all of our on-demand courses, our books, all built by these innovators, but we weren't reaching everyone. We were reaching a subset of the population. Mm-hmm. So we hired her in 2018. And I am super proud to say that as of today, our goal this year for diversity amongst our speakers, the innovators, the technical content creators that work for us, our goal for this year is to hit 51% of new signings, and we're already at 50.3.
Wow.
Now, that was a huge culture change, a huge concerted effort run by the leaders of our editorial team to make sure that we were finding people. But what Nicole helped us think through is, where else could we go to find them? Where were the schools that we could look at where people were doing really good things that might not be the MITs of the world, but more of the state universities? Looking at who was talking online, who was commenting on technical content online, taking that commentary and bringing them in, saying, you obviously have a voice, let us help you bring that voice to market. And so that is actually how we started this very focused diversity initiative to bring women and underrepresented communities into our orbit. And it was a huge focus, and it still is. We have the person who runs our live online training is dedicated to it, making sure that throughout our editorial team, we are making sure those underrepresented voices are heard and brought to market. And back in the days when we were putting on live events, one of the things we became known for is many of the speakers that we found to bring and speak at those events actually were so good, they got hired by the likes of Microsoft and Google. So it landed up being a way not just for us to help our own go to market with sort of new voices, but it helped other companies find those voices as well. So we're super proud of that.
A little break here for me to check in on your leadership development. Do you know what your individual leadership development needs are? Knowing what you need as a leader is the first step to becoming more confident and impactful in your leadership. I developed the Leadership Operating System Inventory for women like you. This holistic self-assessment allows you to assess your effectiveness in leading others, leading yourself, your ability to influence, your ability to manage your energy, and your communication skills. It's a way for you to quickly identify where you could focus your developmental resources. It will take you about 3 minutes for you to complete. If you think about it, that's a quick turnaround to gain insight into what would improve your effectiveness as a leader and make being a leader easier and more enjoyable. Get that insight by visiting womentakingthelead.com to take a fun, easy leadership inventory. That's womentakingthelead.com. For organizations who are not there yet, with many different audiences, you and I are talking about speakers at events and content contributors, but there's also vendors and employees and partners and things of that nature. Sometimes the struggle is like we tend to just go to our own networks. And if we have not intentionally been looking for underrepresented populations to bring into our personal networks, they're not easy. I'm going to use the word easy and explain it to find. They're not easy to find, meaning you have to put effort and do things a little bit differently to find those underrepresented populations. So it does require a change in thinking and approach and effort, but you can do it. Like, it's not hard. It's just not easy.
Right. I totally agree. And it used to be a little bit of a challenge at the beginning, right? Because we had an approach to how we found our speakers and how we found the people that were our content contributors. We did have to change that. And it did not happen overnight. Like it took time, right? You've got to do the research. You've got to find these people. And then you've got to make sure that you're not just doing it and bringing that voice to market for the sake of that's a female or that's somebody from an underrepresented community. You want to make sure they really know their stuff.
Yes.
You've got to make sure that they really are the right voice. So it's not as simple as the let's hire a woman. It's that woman also has to be able to do the job.
Right. Because you don't want to be guilty of tokenism.
Exactly.
Or, and the ugly underbelly of tokenism is you put somebody in a position where they are set up to fail and feel awful about themselves.
Right.
And you don't want that.
Absolutely. Which is why I believe in the promote from within strategy, right? Like everybody can grow, everybody can learn. You can find talent and say to them, listen, we think you're going to be great one day, but you need to take some speaking classes. You need to learn how to speak publicly before we can put you on our stage. Those kind of ways that we have helped mentor people, I'm incredibly proud of. And I really do credit our editorial team for doing a fabulous job, which, by the way, our chief content officer is a woman.
Nice. Yes. I love it. And I also want to underscore what you said about it takes time. Like no, cultural change or initiative is going to happen quickly. And typically when we try to make it happen quickly, we're cutting corners, we're skipping important things. It's important so breaking down the process your company went through, Laura, with this initiative was taking a step back. You hired a consultant, really looked at what was going on, how are these decisions made, where are we looking for people, and how do we need to do this differently before you even took action,
right,
to change the outcome.
Right. And we did our own internal assessment. Like we started when we really recognized it, we started saying, okay, let's go back and look, right? Like you got to do the math, right? Like where are we today? What's our baseline? And we went back and we took the time to figure it out over the course of the 5 years before. How did we get to this place? And again, O'Reilly is a storied Silicon Valley brand. Our brand and our credibility mean everything to us and to the market. So we knew that whatever we did, we had to do it right.
Nice. Okay. Taking it back to the internal culture at O'Reilly, what are some of the things, and like, of course, this can go back. What are some of the changes that you see that have happened over the course of time that you've been at O'Reilly that has changed that number at the executive level from 35 to 45 and could even increase over the next several years as well? And I'm sure this is reflected at all levels of leadership, but things that you noticed beyond, you talked about the flexible work schedule, the hire, promoting from within and developing people. Were there any other things that that definitely impacted just increasing the talent pool of O'Reilly?
I do think it's interesting. Like I said, there always were women in leadership and there always were women working at O'Reilly. We've grown that number now. Yes, our executive number is 45%, but our total population is 43% women, which is compared to what Deloitte says is the average in technology, that's 33%. Mm-hmm. So we feel really good about that. I think the flexibility, which actually was there when I started, not to the extent it is now. We are a fully remote company now. We did that during the pandemic. But back in 2016, we made this decision to start hiring remote engineers. We didn't want to compete with Silicon Valley or Boston, those communities where our two offices were. And so we made the decision to hire remotely. And that decision really allowed us to start finding sort of our real footing on flexibility, because all of a sudden, 80% of the company was remote to each other. We had some people in Boston. We had some people in Sebastopol, where our office is in California. And by the end of 2018, we had 160 remote engineering and product team members. Mm-hmm. That flexibility, that hiring people on multiple coasts, that learning to work with multiple sort of time zones, helped us really create that more flexible approach to work. And I think that alone, when we actually hire now, we talk about that as one of our major differentiators compared to other companies. Not only have we learned to work in a remote environment, we have learned to craft our flexibility so that the work gets done, meetings still have to happen, but outside of that, giving people the freedom to do their work when they need to do it, but still meet their deadlines. That is a promise that not only we talk about, that we have proof points of. So when we're hiring now, we can say that that's been going on for years at O'Reilly. And I think that makes a difference. A lot of people talk about flexibility, but it's not really there. And you can see it in the way Silicon Valley has treated this hybrid, you must come into the office 3 days a week. Why? Like, I really don't understand that. I believe that innovation comes from people's mindset, not from people's location. And so I feel like a lot of what we've done is made it so that no matter who you are, whether you're a woman or a man coming into a business, when we talk about that flexibility, it's true and we can prove it.
Let's dig in here, because you've been doing this for a while and having success with it. Because between you and I, Laura, and the thousands of people who are now listening to us, there is this concern that companies have of having a remote workforce, because sometimes I'm even brought in to help train managers. Like, how do I lead a remote team? How do I help people feel that they belong in an organization where we don't bump into each other in the halls, and we're not gathering in conference rooms and onboarding new employees? How do you help them to really get a sense of the culture and the people they're working with when they're remote? What has been your success there?
So we have an amazing people team led by a woman, our chief people officer. And, one of the things that we've done, we have amazing mentor programs. You get assigned a buddy when you get started at O'Reilly. Your goals are laid out for you in writing, 30, 60, 90 goals. So you know what you have to do. You're introduced to your teams. We ask that everybody be on video when they're on Slack calls or on, Google Hangouts or Meets, whatever they are, because that's how people, form that little connection. And I don't want to pretend it's perfect. We have people asking all the time, oh, it would be great if we could get everybody together or get our team together. But to be honest, we are so remote because we opted to hire talent no matter where they sat, that is actually quite difficult and quite expensive. So It's hard to do. We just brought our sales team together for our big annual sales conference, and everybody loves it. But it was because we were retraining them in a new sales methodology. Right. It's hard. Okay. Sometimes it's hard to be remote. People want that personal connection, but our HR team has these great programs that they have built out over the past few years for training, for onboarding, for mentoring and stewardship. And I think that they've done a great job, and that has really made a difference for us over the course of the last few years.
Oh my goodness. Just hearing how you've laid it out, like there is a clear plan for every person who's hired. Nobody is left to their own devices. They know exactly what's expected of them, who they can go to, who their team is, and they're included right from the get-go.
Right from the beginning. And, I'd love to say it's 100% perfect all the time. There are things that can slip through the cracks now and then, but by and large, I think we get it mostly right. And I'm really proud of it.
That's amazing. Okay. So what are O'Reilly's goals for the coming years? You've done amazing work, but I know with cutting edge companies, they're never satisfied with the status quo. Yeah. Where are you looking to go with your talent in the future?
I mean, right now, the big focus, of course, is on AI and technology. And, another example of what I've been talking about, the engineers that we have today that are working on our AI programs that we intend to bring to market through our learning platform. And just so you know, that learning platform has 5,000 companies and 3 million users on it on a daily basis. So, but that whole team that's working on that AI infrastructure, they're new to AI. They learned it on the job. And again, super proud of that sort of promote from within, give people opportunities. We're working on that now, and the team that's doing it is really driving us forward. It's super exciting. So from that perspective, AI is what we're trying to do and trying to bring to market. But one of the things that O'Reilly has done for years is, we have this unique power to tell stories about technology. And one of the things we're very focused on right now is ethical AI. And what that means for people. We've actually published our AI policies so that people could see how we as a company are ethically trying to deal with artificial intelligence and what it means for the future. As an organization, we are focused on AI as a productivity enabler, not a job killer. And we're trying to encourage other companies to think about it the same way. So that's part of that sort of big picture voice that we've always brought out in the technical world. We are the ones who convened the communities that brought about open source and Web 2.0 and the maker movement and big data. And we intend to do the same thing with AI.
Yeah, I did a lot of research on middle managers last year, and there was a lot of articles written on AI and how AI is going to change the workload, especially for middle managers who get crunched, right? They have to help develop their teams. They need to be people oriented, but that doesn't mean they don't also have a full slate of work that they need to be doing, and how AI will be able to alleviate some of that crunch that the middle managers are feeling. And there was a caveat: if companies don't try to add to their workload. Yeah. Because this is typically what has been happened. And it goes back to, inventions that were supposed to help make us more productive and free up our time is that instead, just as human beings, we switch to, once we have time freed up, we switch to, well, how many other things can I get done? Right. And so there has to be, we're on that cusp, like you say, with AI, where this could be amazing for productivity and it can help alleviate workload if we're keeping our eye on not then going, oh, well, when somebody leaves, we don't need to rehire. We can just, assign the work so that everyone's picking up that slack. So it's definitely something for us all to be aware of.
Yeah, and I think that's how we're thinking about it. I love the concept of productivity enhancer, right? Not productivity replacer. And I think that, one of the things that I believe about AI, it is not new information. It's what you get from AI is what people have written in the past in a summarized form, right? AI is trained on the creativity of people who put things in writing and on video in the past. I still believe that's an important component of life and work. That creativity is not going to come from AI. It's going to come from people using AI. And so you've got to keep value in the people. You've got to understand that your people are your creative force. They're your innovation. AI is a technology. That's all it is. It's a technology. It's a tool. But it's the brilliance of the people at O'Reilly right now that are taking that tool and are going to make it really actionable for our users. You have to think like that. If you start thinking about how many jobs I can replace, I've actually seen it. I mean, Joe, you've probably seen it. I mean, there was some large bank that said they thought they would eliminate 6,000 jobs by 2025 because of AI. That's a terrible way to think, right? How can you do better by your customers if you use AI in the right way? Don't just think about it as a way to take away employees, because the brilliance of those employees are what's going to enable your customers to be better.
Yep. And staying people focused, that will make the difference to what type of company you have, what culture you have, and how you are able to retain talent and getting more parity in all levels of leadership. Laura, what a pleasure it has been to talk with you. Where can people find you, or where would you like them to go to learn more about you and O'Reilly and the work that you're doing in the world?
O'Reilly.com has all of our information and our bios. Everything is there. You can follow me on LinkedIn. I'm there. A lot of the things that I write go on the O'Reilly blog, so you can see things there. And I've got, if you just Google my name, I've got posts that have hit the Financial Times and things like that. Recently, I've written an article with one of our content strategists about ethical AI, which I think is really important. And it's got a step-by-step of how companies need to think about just what you were talking about, Jody, your suppliers, your shareholders, all of your constituencies. And that's also available on O'Reilly.com. And I think that's an important piece of work that I'm actually pretty proud of.
Amazing. And for those of you listening, you can find those links in the podcast episode description and also on the post on my website. And Laura, what a delight it has been to talk to you. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to enlighten us. We are all better for having met you.
No, it's great, Jody. Thank you so much. And thanks for all you do to bring sort of women to the forefront of people's thinking. I think it's really important.
Thank you so much for listening to the Women Taking the Lead podcast. I have 3 small favors to ask. If you are not yet subscribed to the podcast, hit the follow or subscribe button so you don't miss out on the upcoming episodes. Do you know anyone else who can benefit from this episode? Please share it with them. And if you are looking for leadership development opportunities for yourself, your team, or your organization, reach out to me. We can customize a program that meets your specific needs. You can reach me at Jody, Jodi, at womentakingthelead.com. And as always, I hope this was of value to you, and here's to your success.